With stunning scenery and some amazingly talented crew members, New Zealand's a really popular place for going out and making screen content. So today we're going to be looking at the top 5 TV shows you didn't realise were shot in New Zealand. But before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video, and feel free to leave a comment if we miss anything out. The 1980s was a strange time for children's television. Nothing epitomised that more than WORZEL Gummidge, the story of a sentient scarecrow who comes to life and is totally devoted to his wooden friend Aunt Sally, who can't stand him and beats him up quite often. Cancelled in 1981 in the UK, lead actor John Pertwee spent years trying to get the show back up off the ground, and in 1987 TVNZ came on board and agreed to give him a couple of seasons. So they relocated everything down to New Zealand. They created a story where Aunt Sally was sold to a museum down here and WORZEL had to follow her. Trippy as always, totally incomprehensible by today's standards. This show actually marked the start of the career of Sir Peter Jackson, whose first job was making prosthetics for the television show. In the mid-90s, action star Kevin Sorbo starred in some direct-to-TV movies called HERCULES, which created a spin-off show and then another spin-off show called XENA, all of which was produced here in New Zealand, along with Young Hercules, which nobody ever seems to remember. These days, Lucy Lawless is here making crime dramas, while Kevin Sorbo is known in the US mostly for his pro-Trump tweets, but all of their production started here in New Zealand, introducing the world to a bunch of great Kiwi actors, some fun Kiwi effects and some beautiful Kiwi locations. Every adult at some stage in their life questions whether or not they've lived up to their full potential, and it's really hard to tell when you're halfway through your life if that's the case. When we're younger we get told you can do amazing things, and when you get older you kind of get put in a corner. So it's an obvious thing to do to sit there and be a bit introspective, and that's where Mr. CORMAN comes in. Written, directed, created, starring and scored by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, this show was made in New Zealand just before the pandemic hit, or just as the pandemic hit. So production continued, but obviously at a very scaled down rate. Since then, Levitt has actually decided to stay in New Zealand. He enjoys the place so much and he enjoys raising a family here. However, the show's just been released currently on Apple TV, and it's honestly a fantastic chance to sit down and get inside the head of a middle-aged person who's really questioning their place in the world, which I think a lot of us have been doing lately. You know, for some people, doing a TV series set in a post-apocalyptic, post-pandemic world while shooting in the middle of a pandemic might be a little bit on the nose, but for Robert Downey Jr. and his wife and the team at Netflix, it really wasn't the case. Shooting in New Zealand over 2020 during the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, this TV series got shut down a couple of times due to outbreaks around the country. However, they continued and the show was released in July 2021. Following a group of survivors from a pandemic that wiped out large chunks of the population and led to hybrid children being born, half animal, half humans, this fun fantasy series follows Gus, who's a 9-year-old boy who has to go out into the world and find his own way with the help of a few ragtag people around him. His eternal optimism and sense of adventure really drives the show, but it's got some stunning Kiwi locations and some amazing Kiwi talent on screen, and it's actually directed by a couple of Kiwis as well as a couple of Americans. Totally worth a watch if you get a chance. Sit down and binge it today, because, you know, we're still in the midst of a pandemic when we record this. You've all heard the expression "go go Power Rangers" at some point in time. After all, the show is 28 years old. Although 10 years into production, the TV series moved to New Zealand. So for the last 18 years, you've been seeing New Zealand locations, New Zealand actors, and New Zealand crew making this TV series that airs on one of the various Disney channels in the US. It's changed a few times over that period. This TV series might seem like it's cheap and fun, and that's part of the joy of it, to be honest. And for it to go for so long and provide so much work for the New Zealand film industry is absolutely fantastic. That's one of the reasons why this TV show, Power Rangers of all things, is our #1 spot for TV shows made in New Zealand.